Welcome to Catholic Education Matters, the podcast that celebrates the beauty of Catholic education. Join us as we share the stories of those making a lasting impact on Catholic education. Let's begin. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. I am really excited with this afternoon's guest. Today we have Dr. Gerry Turcotte from St. Mark's and Corpus Christi College. I'm going to take a moment, if I may, to read some of your bio just so that I can give all the viewers a quick intro and tell everybody a little bit about yourself. First of all, an experienced post-secondary educator and administrator, Dr. Gerry Turcotte has been president and vice chancellor of St. Mary's University in Calgary for 11 years. And before this was associate provost and executive dean at the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Notre Dame in Australia, both Catholic universities. He is the past chair of the Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities in Canada and vice chair of the Council of Presidents of Alberta. Under his leadership at St. Mary's University, the school's enrollment grew by over 100%, leading St. Mary's to become one of the fastest growing universities in Alberta. To support this growth, Dr. Turcotte played a major role in securing significant government and donor funding while also leading two successful strategic planning initiatives. He's a graduate of McGill University, that's where he's got his bachelor's, the University of Ottawa with a master's, and the University of Sydney with his PhD. Which he attended on a Commonwealth Fellowship. He was awarded major teaching awards in Australia, including local, state, and national recognitions for excellence in teaching. He was also awarded the Governor General's Award for Canadian students in 2011 and the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal in 2013. Wow, what a background there in education. Doctor, thank you for joining us here at Catholic Education Matters. And like I said, we're honored to have you here today and to talk to us a little bit about St. Mark's College and Corpus Christi, where you are both president and principal.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course.
Great to be here.
So how about we start off with talking a little bit about St. Mark's and Corpus Christi. A lot of us don't know the difference or how that setup is, both up at UBC. In the endowment lands there, part of UBC, I suppose you can say, or you're affiliated in some way?
With.
Okay, there you go.
So I think the confusion is very fair because I know when I was being hired, I had to spend a bit of time to figure out the relationship between the two colleges. But essentially, the easiest way to understand it is really Corpus Christi is the undergraduate liberal arts part. So it's a standalone college, and it's been going for 25 years.
Right.
And St. Mark's is the Graduate School of Theology, and it's been going for over 70 years.
Over 70?
Over 70,
wow.
70. So between the two, almost 100 years of Catholic education at UBC, and we have our own land there and our own space. And however, we also have a great affiliation agreement with UBC, which means that our students can, if they're attending through us, they can use all of the UBC facilities. So from the gyms to the library to all those resources. Right. So we always talk about it being the best of both worlds.
The best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. That's great. And so how many students would be on campus there at any given time?
So we try to cap between 400 and 500 students. So our goal is really to keep the undergraduate community small because our brand is really small class sizes.
Right.
So the goal for us is never to be a supersized university. We kind of are a boutique brand.
Yep.
We offer so Corpus Christi offers the first 2 years, full 2 years of university. So sometimes people aren't sure what it does. Sometimes they think it's a community college.
Yep.
It's a university, and it does the 100% transferable courses the full 2 years of university.
Yep.
So students will start with us. If they do their 2 years, they get an Associate of Arts degree, and then they transfer. The bulk of our students transfer to UBC, but many go to SFU, to McGill, to the States, and so forth. So we do those first 2 years. versus St. Mark's, which does really the graduate school of theology. So that's a different kind of focus. That's really looking at lay formation, training for deacons, for seminarians. It offers 3 master's degrees and so forth. So 2 very, very different pieces. And they're kind of joined by a BA in theology and culture. So that BA does the first 2 years with Corpus Christi, and you do your next 2 years at St. Mark's. Okay. And those kids go to UBC to get their BEd degree, and they are 100% employed by the Catholic school district, because you have teachers for the Catholic school system that have Catholic formation, which is not always the case.
So what percentage of the students do you think would end up in the Catholic school, education system, like in terms of being teachers or? Being
teachers, it's a small percentage, and it's not well enough known. And this is where I hope certainly we can work with the Catholic schools to get that pathway better understood. Because my experience in Australia and in Alberta was that a lot of the kids who go to the secular universities to go teach in the Catholic school system often have like half a course in Catholic stuff, and that's their foundation. And then so it's really then becomes a school that has to train up the teachers and so forth. So here you have a fantastic program that makes sure they have a full Catholic formation before they even go into the schools. The program that we offer, even before they get into the education program, already has a pre-practicum. So it's a fantastic opportunity for students, but it's just not well known. And so we have very low numbers. The bulk of our students who come through Corpus Christi go into go into psychology, or they go into arts at UBC or at SFU with a very popular pathway into the Sauder School of Business as well. Oh, so it's a little bit of everything.
Wow. So quite a base that you can get our students grounded in the first couple of years, and they end up. So what percentage of Corpus Christi students would end up in St. Mark's? Is there very many? Or
no, again, it's a small path because it's not a well-known program. The majority of our kids do the Associate of Arts degree and then transfer to another
like UBC
institution.
or something like that.
But I guess what's really different, the way we kind of think about it is the value add. So first of all, the classes are small, deliberately so, which obviously puts a burden on us in terms of resourcing it. What my context for when I was in Australia, my smallest class was 400 kids. So if I recognize the kids because they were in trouble, right? So that's not what we want as the experience for our students. Many of the students, for example, who are doing a business class with us have the same professor who teaches it at Sauder and teaches it for us, but they have 120 kids in the Sauder class and 30 in ours. So it's not one is better than the other. It's just a different model. And we really focus on, I guess, supporting the whole person. So obviously the faith piece is there. Not everybody is Catholic. Not everybody is looking for the faith education, but the values base is there, and it underpins everything we do. So students who are doing their degree have an opportunity to supplement what they're doing with in fact, an award-winning leadership program that often sets them up with mentors, programs that have, in some cases, have become kind of ongoing career path for some of our students. They participate in programs like Map the System, run by Oxford University, where our kids have to participate when they're in their first and second year, but they're competing against PhD students from all the universities in Canada. But just to put it in context, because of that support, a couple of years ago, our kids not only beat all the Canadian universities, but ended up at Oxford and won the undergraduate award.
Wow.
So, top 17 universities out of 1,000 worldwide for our tiny little college.
That's incredible.
So that's really what we lean into, what we specialize in. It's not just that you have top flight academic courses, which are equivalent and accepted and transferable, etc. But it's also the whole experience that comes with it. So the additional support, because we're smaller, a lot of our students have internships as well, that align with some of the interests that they're in. So for those who work in communications, they have internships in our communications programs. Those who are working and very interested in fundraising have had internships in our fundraising department and so forth, or marketing and so forth. So we really look at the value add, because education isn't just, those courses that you do. Those have to be the very best academically, but it's also the value system that comes with it.
Right. That's what I'm finding. My oldest daughter, she just graduated from SJP2 last year. So she's in her first year at Catholic Pacific College at Trinity Western.
Yep.
And same thing. It's tiny.
Yep.
Well, even smaller.
Yes.
And real humble beginnings. But you know what? That's just been perfect for her. And although it's attached to the larger University of Trinity Western, which is great. But the sense of community and just her being able to develop the whole person has just been a great experience with her thus far. And I'm assuming at Corpus Christi, same thing. Actually, one of her closest friends graduated with her from SJP2 as well, and she is in her first year at Corpus Christi this year. Yeah. So last year, it was her first year that we're contributing students to your college.
Yeah,
so,
very nice.
Hopefully we can
hopefully
continue.
That grows and grows.
Yeah,
it's so important, right?
We need relationships like this to that need to be fostered between our schools, between our high schools, but also between our universities, our elementary schools with our high schools. We need to be promoted. We're working on that right now with our high school, but especially we need Catholic Pacific College to grow. We need St. Mark's and Corpus Christi to grow and to be real anchors in the community, because they're producing great kids.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, just if I just use the example of the kids who go from us into, for example, Sauder, what we're told by the Sauder School of Business is that our kids tend to focus more on philanthropy when they get there. So even their focus on business is directed towards community. So, values do matter, and they shape the path that you take.
Yes.
And we're in such a toxic secular culture right now that, to create a positive space where your faith can flourish, it's not easy to do. It's under siege. And so this is why we kind of lean into, how it matters at every section of your life. And you see that impact everywhere in community. That's why our kids volunteer in just extraordinary numbers. So they're down in the shelter with me and my team. They prepare food during the week. They stock a food bank that we have on campus. It's just
love to hear that.
It's values based, and if this is not what Jesus asked us to do, I don't know what is. Right?
Yeah. Well, and we have that at St. John Paul as well, the Social Justice Club.
Yes.
Which that term social justice has been hijacked by so many groups, and people don't even realize it was, the Catholic community invented that. They invented social giving back, in massive ways. Taking care of the poor has been a motto forever.
Yes.
We've had,
as has education. I mean, the Catholic Church created universities, right? The very first universities, and it has been ever thus. So, I think it's something we should be proud of. But I think too, we need to do more to promote our own, institutions within the faith. That's not a criticism. I when I got here, everyone kept saying to me, "Oh, Corpus Christi and St. Mark's are the best kept secret." I just want it to not be a secret.
Yeah.
And we just have to do more to let people know it's there.
It's true. Yeah. It's true. Question, can they play sports at UBC if they're going?
So we actually have an affiliation with UBC. So the coach has been, Coach Blake has been an amazing advocate. So some of our students have been on the football team. And so we have a kind of program where they can participate as well. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. When I went to UBC, I played football there too. And I didn't even know about St. Mark's College at the time when I went. That was a long time ago. Yeah. But it was there. It
wasn't 70 years ago.
No, it wasn't 70 years ago. So it was definitely there when I was there. And it is too much of a secret, and I went to a Catholic high school and didn't even know about it there.
No, that's exactly right. And again, it's not a criticism. That's on us. We have to do better on promoting what we do. Yeah. And making everyone aware of just kind of the opportunities that are there.
Yeah.
Right? It's a first-class academic institution. We have the best profs. We focus on outstanding academic programs. We have an incredible array of scholarships too for high academic achievers, our Circle of Fellows, for example. But we also have scholarships for individuals who, for financial reasons or for economic, socioeconomic positioning, might not be able to access education.
Right.
And so we have very generous scholarships too that our community have made possible. Literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to support kids. 100% of our fundraising goes into student support. So again, this is not the best recipe for a tiny college that gets no government funding.
Yeah.
But again, that's why we're there. We're a not-for-profit, even though we're treated, by government like the for-profits, and a lot of the punitive rules that apply to for-profits shouldn't apply to us, and we just have to absorb those extra costs,
Yeah.
But we don't have any of those advantages that the for-profits have. But again, it's our mission, right? That's why we're there. It's to be accessible, and
Why do you think there is that, I'll call it, pushback from our governments regarding that in terms of how you're treated, not as a nonprofit? Why do you think that is?
I think it's hard to say. I think what I was surprised moving to Vancouver was to see how aggressively anti-faith a lot of areas are, which I didn't expect.
Yeah.
And I think from a government point of view, they just want to be careful with their base. So they're kind of trying to have their cake and eat it too. So they might be supportive. And I know from a fact, speaking to individual government figures, even many of them are people of faith, but they don't want to do it publicly in case it erodes their base.
Yeah.
So, it's that...
really sad that people aren't willing to stand up and actually profess their faith and in a good way, and remind the West that the West was built on Judeo-Christian values. I say that so often through the podcast, and I'm sure people are sick of hearing that from me, but it's true. And those values that we have today, even if you're not of faith at all, you realize our legal system, so much of it, everything has been based on our laws are based off of, they had to come from somewhere. And it came from those Judeo-Christian values originally. But they're just kind of being tossed to the side. And as they are getting tossed to the side, or if our faith, religion in general gets tossed to the side, as that happens, other things start crumbling too, because all of a sudden anything goes. And we're kind of in that bit of a mess right now, even across our country, federally and provincially, where we've just kind of said, well, we don't want to offend anybody, so anything goes. But that in itself is offensive.
Yeah. I think for us, what is critical in even not just the colleges, I think in Catholic education is to create a positive space, right? A space where individuals can really shine and find their own authenticity, right? And to me, this goes right back to the Catholic core, right? It's about the dignity of the human person. And it's so easily eroded by social media, which, let's face it, our young people are overwhelmed by. It's hard to compete with something that is kind of a 24/7, indoctrination. So what's the answer to that? Well, you can stand up and you can create all kinds of strict rules. You can be cranky, you can, or you can create a really loving environment that demonstrates the kind of impact that an education like what we offer opens society up and breaks down boundaries and so forth. And I think that's kind of how we approach it. Make everybody feel valued,
And that's based on our Catholic faith.
Yes, it's
not something we've. It's not something your university has just created on its own. Right? No, it's based on our faith. And
I wish I had the copyright on it and could claim credit, but some young teacher called Jesus cut there first. And so he has the copyright, but you know what? He shares it freely. So why not use it? Right?
Yeah. Oh, what a great way of putting that. I love it. So. What is the vision now with Corpus Christi and St. Mark's College? Like, what are you seeing? What are the next sort of big goals that you're trying to accomplish? Like we talk about, like marketing. We spoke earlier with Dr. John Martins, and he talked a little bit about that too. We got to get the word out more. Best kept secret here. And marketing within the schools, within the high schools. I mean, like we would love to see that at our new high school, to say like here is your path, right here. You can go right from here, right to your Catholic college, and away you go. But so what is the ultimate vision? What would you like to see happen?
Well, I guess we have a number of goals. One is certainly that, Corpus has to grow its degrees. Like we would like to have a full BA. We have a BA Theology and Culture, but it's very specifically kind of framed by the government. So we would like a regular interdisciplinary BA, and we're working towards that. And that's probably 2-3 years away if all goes well in terms of our accreditation.
Yep.
Down the road, we're going to merge the two colleges. So this confusing piece is less confusing and just become St. Mark's, But at the same time, the goal is to build, more resiliency for our programs. We certainly want more Catholic high school students coming. At the moment, we're seeing a really interesting thing where the public schools are now flocking towards us, and not so much the Catholic schools. So we don't totally understand why that shift has taken place.
Is it
over
Catholics
the last 2 years
in the public schools, or is it?
That's harder to know. Like you can't. You're not really allowed to ask that kind of specific. But
you can't find out if they're
if they
practicing.
self-declare,
you
would know, and you would know it just by. I mean, as we were talking about before recording. We had Ash Wednesday Mass, and it was absolutely packed to the rafters for 3 masses in a row, and that's all young kids.
Yeah.
So, there's obviously passion and interest there.
Yeah.
A lot of kids from different faith groups also come to us because, as some have said to us, faith is on the table. Yeah. So at least we can be safe here, whereas it's toxic, everywhere else.
Oh, my goodness.
So, for me, like personal goal, like we have a plan for a $10 million extension on the building, but we need a lead donor, and, we're tiny, so we need to get that going and started. It would be a fantastic initiative, but basically to grow and, to double the size of our, probably a student body, not much more than that, because again, our brand, our specialization is a small class size, that attention to the individual, right? And that can't change. So
what would be the intake like each year? How many could you take, or where would you be maxed out before you're saying, we're full, we can't take any more this year?
Well, I think if we got to 600-700 kids, we would be full.
Okay.
And so
in 1 year, in first year,
all up.
Okay, so but in
over
first
2 years.
So, but in first year, how many would you be able to take?
I think we could still handle it for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. And where we've been hit hard, just really in the last month and a half, is through the international student cuts that the federal government has put through. These were really, in my view. So I will. Divorce from any other parties and say that these were really ill-conceived changes that were made for all the wrong reasons that have really negatively impacted Canada. We've seen international enrollments applications to Canada drop by 45% because Canada's been made toxic in the world because of the federal government policies. Yeah. But they're rapidly changing rules around those policies have caused chaos. We had students who were accepted under the rules. They changed the rules. The kid had to pull out, go back to Japan, and then they said, we'll give them grace period. Too late. The kids, like, this is amateur hour.
Oh, my God.
But then they imposed caps, international caps on and assigned them to the different provinces. Those are administered by the province. And in our case, the province has essentially taken away all of our international students. So this is a shocking virtually. Well, they've given us 11 international places, which is absurd.
Wow.
So it's a blow because it came with no warning, no time to pivot institutionally. And that's for us. The international piece is really important because they're built into the way we support them culturally, the way we support interculturality. So, one of the things I think that's really tough in the North American system is we have a type of cultural myopia sometimes. And we need the international framework to show us that the world is beyond just our own patch and the complexity of the world. Look at the conflicts right now.
Yeah.
If you don't understand what's going on in the world, you don't understand what's happening in Canada.
Yeah.
So for us, the international community is so important because it brings that perspective. It brings those different cultural groups. So we have amazing Catholic kids from India, but it's a totally different story about how they practice their faith, and the challenges they face. Or kids who come from countries where it's toxic or illegal to have your faith, and to see how they blossom or how they're supported. Or kids who have come from no faith and who suddenly discover their faith, and we don't indoctrinate. That's not our role. We are there to create a safe, dynamic, amazing space. But that interculturality is really important, and it creates a wiser citizen. It expands your worldview, and I don't think we're going to solve the world's problems by having kids who are insular. We need to understand the world, right?
Yeah, that's important. I never thought of it that way in terms of the international students and what they're bringing to us as well. Which that's huge, actually.
And it has to be done right, because one of the problems that we're seeing right now is the international kids, are often being brought because they're cash cows. Right, and this is kind of what the government maybe is trying to solve, but they've done it the wrong way. With this blunt instrument kind of approach. But in fact, if it's done with integrity, it's a celebration of both cultures, and it builds both cultures. And it creates incredible relationships when those kids go home, right? They're taking a view of Canada as a place that's accepting, that's democratic, that's dynamic to their home countries, which is a promotion. And we see more kids come because of that, right? So it's a win-win.
Kids, people may immigrate eventually, or do business, in our country, internationally.
It's a win-win, and so we've been a bit short-sighted, but at least our conscience is clear that we have always treated the international student as an individual. We've tried to celebrate their cultures. We've had Lunar New Year feast where those kids have cooked the food for the college, Dilwali and so forth, right? So it's also about respecting other people's cultures. But what happens when you respect someone's culture? They respect yours. Right? And it creates that, that understanding.
The understanding, the curiosity then as well. And I mean, Catholicism is a religion that it started with one person who recruited 12 guys, and away it went.
Exactly.
So it's funny, I know when I hear that, some people say, well, you know what, there wouldn't be religion if you weren't born into it. You wouldn't be Catholic. It's like, well, wait a minute, that's not how it started. If we go back far enough,
Jesus wasn't born Catholic, so you know what I mean. This is all about learning and relationship and community.
It is.
That was the thing. If you look, at, and this is where I get really upset when I see people misquoting the Bible, and especially misquoting Jesus for really what I think are sinister purposes. Jesus didn't turn his back on anybody. And he didn't say you're better because you're more high ranking. It was literally the opposite. He was in the margins. And again, this is why I'm really moved by our Corpus Christi and St. Mark's kids that come with me to the shelters, who care about who's in the margin, who don't judge. Right, that's got to matter, and it's going to make a difference going forward.
Absolutely huge, yes. And I'm so proud. I am proud of our school. I have to slip that in there too, just in what they've done for the homeless. And my youngest daughter, she's in the sandwich making club and they get delivered every week. They go out and they give sandwiches to the homeless, or feed the homeless. And we've got the soup kitchen that goes on right in our school now, which the kids see. They set up the tables for it every week.
Wow,
they're in there.
Impressive.
That's massive, and that's what our faith is all about.
It is.
It's huge. It's teaching that, giving back to the those less fortunate. So that's really. I'm really happy to hear that about Corpus Christi and St. Mark's.
And I guess the thing which is also important is the way St. Mark's kind of carries the more the next step. So a lot of the work that we do, we have programs funded by the Archdiocese that support lay ministry. So we have a lot of people who are working in their parishes, or we have a program for deacons, we have a program for teachers.
Right.
So this is also about giving those skills and that support, and sometimes just that community to those people who are at the front lines, as opposed to the students who are going to the front lines. We have all these amazing people who are at the front lines, who are in the parishes, who are in the soup kitchens, who are in administration in different areas of Catholic life, or who are teachers, or who want to become teachers, or educational assistants. And so, the certificate programs that we have, many of them are funded. The master's degrees that we have, this is all preparing that next level, really, of the Catholic citizen, right? Who just enriches, the message of God that they bring to the community.
Yeah.
It's very cool. It's a very cool partnership.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, what does marketing look like? What can we do to help get more kids going to Corpus Christi?
Well,
St. Mark's?
we have an amazing marketing team of, at the moment, of one, because our lead is on maternity leave. God bless her. This is fantastic. So it's hard. Like, we do everything ourselves, and it's hard, as you know, to get, just the same amount of space. If we're doing sometimes like a general kind of school exhibition, and you're with all of the big places. So for me, again, we've been really impressed with how CISFA have been, supporting us, and the principals, So that would be one of the biggest things. Like, invite us into the schools, let us speak to the kids, give us a chance. That the big institutions just have armies of recruiters, and millions, not thousands, millions of dollars of advertising revenue. So we're competing against Goliath. So anything that can be done, to kind of get the word out there, to promote our events, makes a big difference. BC Catholic have been superb, carrying our stories, and like every little bit helps. And we have to do more internally too. Like, our team, they're amazing, but again, our recruitment team is tiny. So getting to all of the schools, like, it's hard. But, invite us for talks. Like, I've done a lot of talks in schools on reconciliation and so forth. In September to December, we'll have the St. John's Bible. So we're hoping to take that to different schools. St. John's Bible is, the first handwritten, hand-illuminated Bible commissioned by Benedictine monks in over 500 years. We'll have one of the editions, that we can take around to schools. And it is, I've had the 7 volumes before at my previous institution. It is a great way for young kids who are, kind of figuring out how the religion classes work, to have, a 6 foot by 8 foot Bible that's fully illuminated, that's also using contemporary images from their own world to remind them that the Bible's not an artifact, that it's a living document. And I think that's what we have to get better at doing too, is talking about our faith as it's not a textbook from before. It's a guidebook for now.
It truly is. It truly is. We spoke, I was speaking with Dr. Martins about that as well, in terms of the Bible and the Catechism, and bringing that together, how that's something that we, in our faith, in the Catholic faith, we've got that. If the Bible is kind of like our, call it a rule book, but there's a lot of interpretation that needs to come out of that. We need some guidance. I was saying the other day, I'm doing the Bible in a Year podcast now with
so famous.
With Father Mike Schmitz, and if you didn't have him as a guide reading through it, I mean, just reading the Bible, it's a wonderful thing. But there's a lot of questions that you've got coming out of that. So, and it's so nice to hear that, especially at St. Mark's, that we're delving into that and explaining that these theology classes are there, that are available for those that are curious in their faith, which should be all of us.
The graduate student, we do have, I have to say, it's a little bit unfair, because we have unbelievable professors who teach in the theology program, and they are kind of superstars. But I've spoken to the graduate kids who do the program, because the graduate program is totally online. So we went online during COVID, and then when we brought it back, because they're all educators, or they work in parishes, they said, the online was really working well. That's allowed us now to go out to Kamloops, to Nelson. So it's just broadened the base, but it's still delivered in our quintessential student-focused way. And to a person, they rave about how this has kind of empowered their faith, improved the way they can communicate, the text, because they're not easy. You know,
Yeah.
it's a, I mean, there's over 2,000 years of analysis that's gone into these documents. Like, you know, it takes work, but it's also incredibly rich. It's incredibly rewarding, you know.
Yeah.
So, again, I would urge anybody who has that kind of passion to you know, explore those programs. And where it's especially interesting is you can do the first 3 courses. You can then, you know, raise it into a certificate. You can articulate that, but eventually, very quickly, you have a master's degree. You know, and it's a fantastic way to do it. It improves your job, your sometimes your income too, depending on where you work.
Yeah.
But the skill set that you have right from that in a complex world too. So we do try to do this in the context of the complicated world that we're in, so that you know how to talk about your faith. You know, like that's not easy either.
So talking about your faith, and also how to live your faith, just in general, because I think a lot of us don't realize that we need that to be able to navigate our way through life. Which, you know, going to mass every week is great, and it's a form of worship that we need to do. But there's so much more to learn, like so much more to learn, and all of that extra education will help you navigate through all of the challenges. And goodness knows we have so many. There's a lot happening in our world right now.
Yeah, no kidding.
A lot of big, crazy changes and crazy sort of battles in one form or another that are going on. That changes in governments and philosophies, and you know, the left versus the right versus the left, and everything in between. And yet we're all one people. We all got to try and get along, and to have that guidance from our faith is so important, especially in today's world.
Yeah, I think one of the issues for me is that because we feel we have to defend the faith because it's so under siege, we sometimes lean into all the rules, you know, the restrictions, this, that. We keep forgetting to lean into the joy of faith. You know, like it is such a good news story, and we keep forgetting it. We get into the rules, you know, and then that's what gets picked up, right? And that's what people focus on. But you know, like Jesus was the ultimate rule breaker. Yeah, you know. Like he reminded us to be open to everybody. You know, like that was the first rule, like non-negotiable. Yeah. You know?
Well, we're all sinners.
Yeah,
so let's start with that.
Yep. And that's Pope Francis' you know, opening line, right? I'm a sinner. Pray for me. Let's go from there. Yeah. And you know, that I think that's what all of us can only hope for, right? That somebody prays for us. I know. And then we go from there.
And that's a common attack that's used by those outside the church right now. An attack to the church. It's like, well, you know, the church is this scandal, that scandal. You know, things like that have happened. It's like, okay, that proves that we're all people, that we're all sinners. You know, the church is made up of people. You put 1 billion people together, there's going to be a lot of scandals in there.
And it's important for us to recognize it. It's important for us to fix what was broken. But, you know, you don't destroy all the great work that was done, you know, in that process. Like there's so much, all of the social services, all of the hospitals, all of the education, all of that was created by the Catholic Church. Yeah. You know, and were it to be removed, even though it's so criticized from our Western culture, economies would collapse. Yeah. Because we subsidize so much of the educational system, even at the school level, as you know. Yeah. But nobody really ever wants to talk about that side of things. No. But at the same time, look, we're not in it for that. We're in it because we believe it's a critical, beautiful mission, right? And,
well, yeah. Media doesn't report on planes landing safely.
Exactly.
they love talking about the crashes, but you know, and all the disasters that are going on in the world. So, wow. And what do you have to say to students right now that are considering where they're going to be going to school next year? Why should they consider Corpus Christi and St. Mark's?
So the major reason is that you have an opportunity for, as I said before, the best of both worlds. So you are going to a first-rate educational institution, which has not just some of the best professors, but sometimes the same professor from the big institution next door. but you have it in classes that are smaller, where there's all this other support that comes with it that you don't normally have. But you also don't lose anything by it. In fact, you have the opportunity to probably participate in more leadership and scholarship and other activities and opportunities than you would if you're competing with 70,000 students. But you also don't lose a single step, because the degree leads directly into any, a third-year university program. So why wouldn't you be in a place that gives you more support to start? The thing that blows me away too is, we have food, in our central space, Plato's Cave it's called. There's food all the time. So the kids are always congregating there. And when we have what's called the President's Barbecue, which is where I kind of do a barbecue for the new students, I'm not kidding, 50-60% of the kids are the ones who have graduated and they're at UBC, but they still keep coming.
They still keep coming back.
And you still see them. They're still, they're at Mass, but they're also in Plato's Cave. So it becomes your home away from home. It's a safe space, but you still have access to all the other advantages of the bigger campus.
That's beautiful.
So it's not, why should you come? It's why wouldn't you come?
Yeah.
To have that amazing start.
Is there housing available, or is it just part of the university?
It's part of the university. We have a few places that we've negotiated, but not many. And I wouldn't say that's that's an advantage that we offer. It's Point Grey. UBC is bigger than some small cities. So there's a lot of student, but again, all the more reason why St. Mark's College building is kind of a safe haven, that you come in and it's in the big Mecca, but it's safe. It's like a little oasis, and the parish is right next door as well, so it's all together, right? Yeah,
that's St. Mark's Parish. So,
Parish.
All of the masses that you're talking about are held at the parish.
Yes. Yeah.
So, is the parish that old as well? I guess it must be.
It's younger because we built the church as part of the partnership. So I think it was St. Ignatius before, and then we helped to build it. So we actually have our library, which is one of the best theological libraries, incidentally, anywhere. And it's the ground floor of the parish. So the parish is above it.
Yes.
So, that's where we have our convocations and everything. A lot of our events, too, are held in the parish. Wow. And Father Rob and Father Bill work very closely with our campus minister. So we have a lot of programs. And I guess that would be another thing, too, that we have a really active campus ministry. So a bunch of our kids just came back from Montreal on a fully funded faith journey on campus ministry.
Nice.
So again, there's just all these other opportunities that you get to do, right? That would be, they're there in the bigger places, but again, you're competing with 70,000 kids, right, for those spots.
Right.
So it's different.
So this is a not just a gem of a place to go to school, this hidden gem that we're talking about, but it's also a great stepping stone if you're looking for a pathway into UBC, and maybe you think that, you may not have, because it's difficult to get into UBC as well. I mean, you're competing with kids from around the world all trying to get in there. This is a perfect path for many to come through.
It's been very successful, and many of our students do go into UBC and excel. So, quite a few of our students were also accepted at UBC, but they choose to start with us for all the reasons that I've gone through. And then, again, they shine. We have students who are working for Foreign Services now who started under one of our, Circle of Fellows scholarships. We have 5 of them who just came back from Oxford University where they won the Map to System, We have students in all walks of life, in all different fields. We have one student who I know who's in business, but his passion is real estate. And one of our board members is one of the top real estate agents in BC. So he's taken him on as a mentorship.
Yeah.
And so we have mentorships with legal office, government offices. It's just super cool.
I'm going to ask you this. So you've been in Catholic education a long time.
Yes.
I'm not going to ask you how many years, but Do you have an example of a life, a student that you saw maybe their life turned around in Catholic education, or because of Catholic education, that they came in and was like, wow, that student maybe was going this direction, but when they were introduced to Catholic education, their life took a turn for the best.
I've seen it my whole career. So I'm a working class kid who should never have gone to university, whose family said you shouldn't go to university because it's for elites. It's pure fluke that I ended up at university. And then I realized, and I was a very rough, violent high school too, which is what often working class neighborhoods are like. And then I got to university and thought, oh my gosh, this is not what university, it's not, it's not the tough world that I came from. And education was valued and so forth. And I kind of flourished there. But that experience of having to work 3 jobs, to pay, because my family was poor, reminded me that there were a lot of people, and family members included, who weren't going because they couldn't afford it,
right,
or because they were told they had no right to be there. And that kind of became my mission. So when I was in Australia, I worked with a lot of migrant and Aboriginal groups, and tried to make sure that there was access for these kids to education. When I was at St. Mary's, we had a program called Humanities 101, which was free of charge for people who were experiencing homelessness, who were recovered addicts and so forth. And it's the same thing here, like leaning into opportunities for people like the East End Boys and Girls. There's a scholarship for them to have a pathway. But over and over again, I've seen people whose lives have been kind of transformed by being valued. We underestimate the importance of one's dignity. This is what the faith life is. It's about saying that you matter, right? This is literally what Jesus said, that you matter. Not this political process matters, this synagogue matters, this whatever. You matter. And if that's not something that transforms you as a person, like how many of our kids, especially through social media, have their egos destroyed, their images destroyed, whatever. So for me, what I've seen time and time again are kids coming in that felt hopeless and who have gone on to be leaders. And that doesn't mean they're a leader because they're running, a top 500, although I'm sure some of the kids I've taught have done that, but also that you're leading your community, you're leading your faith group, what have you, doesn't matter. But that you believe that you matter. Holy moly, what could be better, right? So I don't have one example because I've seen it time and time again. I've been brought to tears by students who have come up to me like 15 years later saying, dude, you changed my life, and like, I didn't. I taught you one class. But that class said that I was allowed to be here. Yeah. And then I went on to the next class and so forth. So I think all of us, especially as Catholic educators, that has to be our goal, to say, in this moment, in this class, even if it's a darn statistic class, you matter, and from there, that spark is like nothing else.
Sure. Why Catholic education matters.
Yep.
Hence the name of our show.
Yeah, exactly.
That is wonderful. Yeah. Wow, thank you.
Well,
Dr. Turcotte, for coming and enlightening us and telling us more about Corpus Christi and St. Mark's. And why it matters, the lives that it's changing, and the great contributors to society that it's producing, and just great people with great values, great Catholic values coming out of there. So thank you for what you do, for all that you've done for Catholic education over your career and what you're continuing to do now. So, and we wish you the best, and we look forward to working with Corpus Christi and St. Mark's to get even more of our students as they graduate to consider going there. So,
well, thanks for giving me a chance to talk a bit about the college.
Absolutely, yeah, and we hope to have you back at some point too,
anytime,
for an update to see how things are going. So,
absolutely, Thank you so much.
Thank you everybody for joining us, and we look forward to the next podcast. And we are on Spotify, we are on Apple, and also YouTube. If you could please be sure to like, and if you remember, hit the subscribe button too, because then you'll be notified when we've got our next show on. Thanks everyone. Have a great day. Thank you for listening to Catholic Education Matters. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the podcast on your favorite listening platform, rate it, and also leave a review. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends and family to help spread the word about the impact of Catholic education. Be sure to listen again.